What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are continuing our journey through the Dreamworks universe. All I gotta say is it's been a wild ride. In the last video we went from the ancient times where God instilled magic into the world. We walked through how fairy tales in medieval times and fairy tale creatures all came together, culminating with the clash between fairy tale creatures and humans, and how they actually clashed so hard that the fairy tale creatures had to go into hiding, and the humans' suppression of animals to the point where they're basically just pack meat. Now in today's video though, I'm going to start off with the industrial era, or the industrial revolution kind of. There's only a couple of movies that really fit into this category, so I thought I'd cover them here. But then we're going to get into the big one, which is the modern day in the Dreamworks universe. Now, the modern day in Dreamworks universe spans such a big time gap that I couldn't really warrant putting all of it into some order. Okay, so I've broken into a few things. We've got bits about animals, we've got 3 separate alien invasions, believe it or not, plus the rise of superheroes. So we're going to have a lot to get through in this video, and I hope you guys truly enjoy it. So we get into the industrial era. Now here we have the events of Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, and Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Now what we see here though is the further suppression of animals by humans. They can tell that these animals are actually fairly intelligent. We see the chickens in Chicken Run and Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget actually trying to actively escape their oppression by humans. And they're doing this because they know they're going to die. And humans have created this entire fortress around just imprisoning these animals to be used for what is essentially nothing but food in Chicken Run. But the animals aren't dumb. We see that they have retained that intelligence that they gained from their fairy tale ancestry and the magic that's rolling through this world. But humans, it's not really seen that humans can understand them yet, so they haven't quite regained the ability to fully speak to humans, but they have regained a lot of their intelligence and their drive and their will to actually not be suppressed anymore. And this is kind of the start we see of animals kind of starting to fight back and push back against humans, and that'll only get more in depth into the modern era in this next section we're about to talk about. But where we really see this come into play to actually kind of kick off this is in Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, where science has actually enabled Wallace to turn into a were-rabbit. So he changes every night after eating these things, just goes out eating the carrots. Now, one, you could look at this as this is just science gone awry, and some of it kind of is. But what I think has happened here is he has used science to activate dormant fairy tale genes. And that does come up further down the line in the video we're going to talk about today. But the ability for humans to activate magic within themselves using technology is something that is very important to remember. So it's not that humans have just completely lost the ability to do magic. It's more like it's just dormant within them. And Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit shows that very well. But it also shows a very intelligent canine. He walks around on 2 legs. He is established to be, honestly, smarter than his owner. And they work together in a mutual harmony. So this also shows that not all humans are bad. There are some humans that will feel sympathy and friendship and kindness to the animals. And a man and a dog is actually a really good example of this, and why. So they would have perfect trust with one another as his owner to Gromit. So we have to remember that this rolls into not all humans are bad within this world, and animals are obviously more intelligent and more driven than we could ever be. And that brings us into a great segue into what is the modern era here in the Dreamworks universe. And we're going to start over what I call the animal uprising of the modern era. So this starts off with Shark Tale and then ultimately culminates in the bad guys. So what we're seeing here is animals are way more intelligent, and they are gaining their intelligence back. In Shark Tale, we see that under the water, the fish have an entire society that is a very modern society, and they can probably do this because fish aren't near humans in really any way. So they can adopt some of the human attributes and traits, and we've actually seen that this isn't even something new. The animals and the fairy tale creatures were doing this all the way back in Trolls in the first video, and you should go check that out. So that way you're kind of up to date on this one. And so we see that rolling into their society. The ant society are the same way. They are smaller, they are less detailed with humans, and thus they are more intelligent, with the main ant actually being a scientist himself and building things. And the further they are away from humans as well, we see in Flushed Away, where the rats who live in the sewer, so we have a pet rat who is very intelligent, and he just basically runs the house while his owner's not there, but he's a really rich rat. However, he's still living in a cage and everything. So he is still technically being oppressed by his owner to the point where she barely even notices he's any different than any other rat. He can't communicate with. But when they go into the sewer, they have a full-blown society. It's basically a mini Europe down there, and they even have their own Big Ben, or mini UK, sorry, and they even have their own Big Ben. They have their own thing. They watch soccer, and they're using the human areas and the human technology for their own benefit, even collecting it. But the further they are from humans, the more advanced they actually are able to be. Now, where we see the human conflict come back in here, though, is definitely in Over the Hedge. You have some peaceful animals that have been living on their own. They're not dumb by any means, but they're just living and eking out a life in their little forest until they become surrounded by humans. And then when that happens, they actually take up the fight against the humans themselves and basically just start stealing from them, but also giving themselves a better life by basically stealing and adopting human technology. But you still have humans trying to oppress the animals. But this is where the animals are definitely starting to fight back. Now, where this does kind of throw a little bit of a loophole here is when we move on to Turbo. Now, Turbo is a fun character because he is a snail who, through the use of technology, once again, awakens dormant genes, which gives him superpowers. In this case, he is a snail that got super speed. But he wants to outrace and outdo humans. He wants to be essentially a NASCAR, and he actually does succeed in doing this throughout his whole story, but he also befriends humans. He has humans that believe in him. So we still get to see that again, where we have animals who are standing up to humans and showing they can be just as good at what the humans do, though he does admittingly do it through the use of awakened superpowers. But he also has friends who stand behind him and try and give him the best they can. Now, they are still using him for their own benefit. To the humans, he's just a snail they happen to find that has super speed. But they do put their bets on him and put all their hopes in him to achieve what they also want to achieve. And this is a great segue into, okay, so you have some humans are good, some humans are bad. Some humans would rather cheat to beat the snail that can go very fast. But then you also have this snail who just wants to show everybody that he is just as good as the humans. And that carries over from Over the Hedge very well. And it actually rolls right into Madagascar movies very well. So the Madagascar movies go from Madagascar, Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, Madagascar 3 and Europe's Most Wanted, all the way to the Penguins of Madagascar. In Madagascar, you have a captive zebra who is smart enough to escape his habitat and try and go to give himself kind of a better life, realistically just see the world. He's questioning himself. He's questioning his purpose. And he does manage to escape. We see the humans are still oppressing animals in this way. They are still keeping animals in zoos at this point. And they just kind of are dumbstruck to the fact that these animals are a lot more intelligent than what you would actually see. To us, they are still just dumb animals. But the animals are stepping up. Now, humans can't at this point understand animals yet, but they do see them doing some pretty crazy things. We actually see this in Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, where the animals actually just stopped the humans who have just taken over their water and their reserve and who have been poaching them and fighting against them this entire time, trying to kidnap their cubs and everything. And they actually fight back, and they do a really good job of winning that particular battle and moving it along. But then where we really see this all come to fruition, though, I believe, is in Madagascar 3, in Europe's Most Wanted, where a group of what is essentially circus animals, they just start running the circus. So now the animals are doing what humans do, and actually doing it arguably better. But even in this show, we still see that there is actually humans that are still trying and attempting to oppress animals, and actually doing a relatively good job of it. Because we do see the hunter animal control lady, she straight up wants a lion's head, even though it makes absolutely no sense for her to want that. But it's still a great example of humans and animals butting heads, where humans are still attempting to stay on top, and certain people are actually doing it a little bit better. So that sentiment has probably been spread all the way throughout. But where we move into the Penguins of Madagascar, we just kind of take humans completely out of the equation, and we see what animals have truly been up to in the background, with animals actually having their own little secret society keeping the world safe. And the penguins, which have been arguably the best militarized thing on the entire universe thus far, have actually teamed up with another group of animals that has all kinds of high-tech technology, and they're very intelligent, and they're going through, and they're keeping humans safe from other bad animals. So it's kind of like them being the police force that are trying to keep these fairy tale genes, these fairy tale creatures, these things and keep all of this stuff on the down low, because some animals probably don't want the humans to know just how intelligent they are, but they do want to keep the world safe so they can continue living. Now, if that means helping humans when they can, it just means helping humans when they can. But what we do see, though, is some animals, with the octopus, is actually smart enough to basically fool humans into basically believing that he is a real human, and he has a business set up and an empire, and he is trying to make all of the penguins who he feels betrayed against because they are cuter than him ugly. And he does this by basically turning them into monsters, which is just another example of using science to activate fairy tale genes and give these things weird powers or freaky appearances, and basically turning the penguins into these weird, messed up versions of fairy tale creatures. But this is still animals and humans being completely separate, butting heads, and in like the physical sense, but not actually, going down to where, okay, we are going to be equals. It's just like these animals are obviously better than humans, and these humans want to keep suppressing animals, but the animals are obviously just as intelligent as they are, but no one is just willing to recognize that. And like I said, very few animals we've witnessed can actually even communicate with humans, with the only exception being that we have seen thus far is actually this octopus. But with that one animal being able to communicate with humans, we can move into the bee movie, where it's actually shown that bees are, once again, way more intelligent. They are way more advanced. Their hives are way more advanced than we see. But where this bee, and Barry B. Benson, actually breaks the rules in is he talks to a human, and the human understands him. So now the animals have developed at this point enough where even the insects can be understood by humans. Now it's very, very like kind of risque as to whether only bees can communicate with humans at this point, but seeing as we just had octopus do it, all the animals now can probably, if they truly wanted to and were truly open with humans, the humans could probably understand them. But that never really comes into fruition, at least at this point. In this movie, we only see the bees communicate. But what does this bee actually do? He just straight up goes, you know what? Legally, you are stealing from us. I am going to sue you into where you can't use honey anymore and you can't imprison bees anymore. And bees are just given all of their honey. He basically, what he does is he sues and he wins equal rights. And he says, no, we are this, we are sentient, we are them. You are stealing honey from us, so you need to just give us all of our honey back. And then that leads to a fun little scene where, like, the flowers die. They basically cause a near planetary destruction because bees aren't pollinating flowers anymore, which is kind of like a fun thing, but it is in completely shows that, okay, now legally the animals are going to start stepping up and taking humans to court. And we see that he is continuing this process, talking to a cow, and the cow can talk. So now it is assumed that cows can communicate with humans as well. And not only that, he's probably winning. He has a mosquito as a lawyer. And where we can roll this whole thing into very well, I believe, is into Mr. Peabody and Sherman, where a highly hyper intelligent dog, aka a hyper intelligent fairy tale creature, a dog that can speak, and we've seen animals speak throughout this entire time, is now fully communicating with humans. He is considered the smartest thing on the planet. He even invents time travel, which creates a weird bit of shenanigans for this entire series, because now not only does magic exist, science has came to the point where it can travel back in time, and he sees all of these ancient things, and he basically uses time travel to teach his son about history. Now, what's fun about Mr. Peabody and Sherman, however, is the dog actually challenges the government for the right to adopt a human. So this is basically the dog going, I want equal rights to you in that I would like to adopt a human and be responsible for a human. It is a complete role reversal for what we have seen. Now, him gaining this is a huge step for the animals, and I believe it actually leads to the next bit in this thing. We already have the smartest animal in the world. He has proven animals and humans are completely on the same path, and that basically just opens the door for the bad guys, where the bad guys are truly a group of animals. They are, but they are fully anthropomorphized, and there are humans in this world, but they just look at them as if they are just other humans. So what has happened here is thanks to the efforts of Barry B. Benson and Mr. Peabody, animals at this point have just gained complete rights. They are the exact same as humans. They can hold jobs, or more specifically, they can continue stealing from them. And all of this because of the fairy tale magic and powers and just these fairy tale creatures. Now you just have normal animals that are fully anthropomorphized, wearing clothes, and just full-fledged members of society. Now, some of them taking it the wrong way, admittingly, and the bad guys, that's what we see, but turning over a new leaf. But at this point, humans and animals, there really is no difference in this universe. They are just the same and together. Now, what this does lead us into, though, getting away from the animals, is it's pretty much the end of their story for now as far as modern times go. But where we can jump into is our next wave of things which happen in modern times. The fact that the fairy tale creatures do actually come back. I'd like to talk about this with the Rise of the Guardians, Abominable, Karen Gillan, Teenage Kraken, and Troll Hunters, Rise of the Titans. Now, in Rise of the Guardians, we see that basically in ancient times, God, the man on the moon, has decided that the dark times need to end. So he creates the Guardians. And the Guardians' job is to protect human light, the humans' magic within the children. As long as the children believe, they will continue to exist and they will continue to bring hope, wonder, memories, fun, all of these things that the Guardians represent to the world. So it's basically fairy tale creatures that are still within hiding, because we do see they all have their own little hideouts, still protecting the human race. And you can drop that into with Abominable, where they actually find an abominable snowman. So a fairy tale creature that has been hiding is now being found by humans. And we kind of roll that into Ruby Gilman Teenage Kraken, where this girl has found out that she's a Kraken and she just goes into the world. So now she's exposing the world to fairy tale creatures. It's basically this huge thing. But where the whole fairy tale uprising actually comes into play is in Troll Hunters Rise of the Titans. Now, this one is kind of a weird thing because it is a Netflix movie where you kind of need to watch Troll Hunters, Three Below, and Wizards all on Netflix to really understand the whole events. That's kind of the big Avengers style team up of those three particular shows from Netflix. But essentially, give you guys a quick rundown. This is where a human gets chosen to be the next troll hunter. The troll hunter has historically just been a troll, and his job is to protect the troll world and Troll Town and those fairy tale creatures in that aspect. But a human gets chosen. And what ends up happening here is we get another alien invasion. So I'm sorry when I say three later on in this, I forgot about the aliens in Three Below. So this universe has actually been invaded by aliens 4 times. And it brings all of this actually out to the fray in the real world. And it ends with him kind of resetting the timeline. So I don't know if it really counts, but so up to that point, there would have been 4 alien invasions, but then he kind of just flips that around. So that may still not have happened. I don't know. That one's where it gets kind of confusing. But if you really want to look at it as is like this is the fairy tale creatures coming out, and that will actually set us up better for the monsters and the aliens and the superheroes, which is the next thing that we are going to talk about. What I like to call the alien invasion / rise of superheroes. And these two things kind of coincide with one another. Now, as I said before, the DreamWorks universe has been invaded by aliens, not once, not twice, but on 3 completely separate occasions. But if you line them up, it sort of starts to make sense. So we'll start off this little timeline with our Monsters vs. Aliens. Now, in Monsters vs. Aliens, what we've seen is that the government has actually been keeping monsters basically in prison. And what that shows you is, one, at that probably where that falls into the timeline is still at the time when fairy tale creatures and monsters that have went into hiding, if they are found, they are then imprisoned, so that way the rest of the world does not know of their existence yet still. However, that will change in this movie when the first aliens invade the planet, and the government decides we need to call on the monsters, or these fairy tale creatures, with these special powers. And monsters is a very vague term. One of them is a man that got confused with a cockroach. But I think that's just another example of science reawakening fairy tale powers. And we have a human who gains powers through a meteorite by absorbing the power. But once again, I think that's just them activating fairy tale genes. It all honestly falls right into place with this. But the monsters go up against the aliens. The monsters ultimately become victorious, and the Earth is saved from its first alien invasion. But while that is going on, that actually sets up the timeline rather well for Megamind, as now the world is used to superhumans or superpowered people fighting off against aliens that have came to Earth. And that is basically the plot of Megamind. Megamind is an alien. Metro Man is also an alien, but also just basically you can consider him a superpowered individual. And they are just duking it out in Metro City, or Metrocity, as Megamind likes to call it. And this just seems to be kind of accepted by the town, and it's probably because that's just how it has been this entire time. But I mean, a blue kid going to school probably should have raised some red flags, or a kid that could fly probably should have raised some red flags, but not if you're already living in a world where superheroes are already fighting aliens. It's just going to kind of roll right into place, so they don't really think anything of it. But with the introduction of superheroes, you can roll right into Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, where these kids actually hypnotize their principal, and it's full blown hypnosis, which can be considered a superpower or magic. And by the end of it, he falls into this toilet, which basically is some form of technology, and the swirling ooze and stuff, which actually does infuse him and give him his actual superpowers, where every time they snap their fingers, he turns into Captain Underpants. Everybody just seems to be okay with this. Well, it's just a run of the mill thing. It's kind of they're surprised that it happened, but not quite as surprised you would be in a world where that didn't just happen, but they have been conditioned to weird things happening in Monsters vs. Aliens and Megamind, so superpowered individuals are already just a thing. And this is, like I said, yet again, another example of technology reawakening fairy tale genes, dormant powers, dormant magic within the humans, and just bringing the humans back up to the fray. But where I think this also sort of leads us right into is the events of Home, where this is the third and final alien invasion, but the humans don't really do anything to stop it. I mean, it's kind of weird. I feel like they could. This would have been a perfect example to just go, well, hey, we've tried the monster, we've tried to having superheroes go after it, but they really just kind of leave that out. It really didn't fit into that particular story. But the humans don't really put up that big of a fight. They just kind of let it happen. And I get there was nothing really they could do, but also they might have just been kind of preconditioned to just go, oh, well, it's another alien invasion, so I guess we're just doing this now. And I think that is just a fun way to just kind of roll into it. But now that we've talked about the alien invasions, to get all that out of the way, the other one that I would really like to talk about in this is babies versus animals. And how I say that is essentially in the Boss Baby, we find out that babies have been in this weird kind of arms race style thing with animals and puppies and kittens and trying to make sure that the babies aren't left out because the animals are too cute, that humans don't want to have babies anymore. And they accomplish this by essentially drinking this potion, which makes the baby smart. It basically gives babies human or adult level intelligence and kind of beyond that. Now, we see this being used in both the Boss Baby and the Boss Baby family business. And across the events of those two things, what really all it does is it kind of just reinforces that humans are still trying to oppress animals. So this probably falls in way a little bit before in the animal timeline, before the animals really start just kind of attacking them legally, and that science can once again just recreate magic in humans. Now, all of that is essentially to just say that modern times in the DreamWorks world is insane. And it had so many things happen that it just is hardly even worth talking about. I do want to throw in here, this is where I would place Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. Now, this, I believe, is actually a movie about the claiming of the West from the Adventure Times, and you only actually see one person in a theater watching this movie. So I think it just shows that like some humans were very sympathetic towards animals and trying to support their cause, while others were still just trying to say no, they are still just dumb animals. But I think that is actually a movie within the series, so I just felt like I needed to throw that there so it's mentioned. And you guys aren't gonna be like, well, he forgot Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, but it is there. It's just a movie about the events of them claiming the West in the exploration. So that was this part of the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please come back next week where we are going to get into the future. It will be the final installment, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go back and watch my first video on this, and also guys, if you would like, please get in the comments down below with anything you would like to see me further expand upon, or anything that you think I missed or may not have gone in depth. Did I get any of the order of anything wrong, or have I done a good job of kind of just explaining how all of these things can work in the universe? Please let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, guys, please remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you never miss another video from me. And I will see you guys next week in the next video.